A spore asks little, just a place to land, a trace of moisture, a breath of warmth. And then it unfolds soft, slow, silent, into filaments called hyphae. These threads reach out, touch soil, wood, or air itself. They begin to eat, to grow, to become again. You can picture it now, a world populated by invisible drifters. The sky seeded not just with birds and clouds, but with spores too small for your eyes to catch. They land on trees, on rooftops, on the tip of your sleeve. One settles on the petal of a flower, another on a sleeping fox's fur, another on your skin. And yet, they are not invaders. They are messengers, recyclers, restarters. They do not demand. They decompose. They remake. Some create the mushrooms. You know, chanterelles, puffballs, ink caps that melt into midnight ink. Others never surface, choosing to remain hidden. But all of them, every fungal being, begins with flight. Their release is an art. Puffballs erupt in small clouds. Brackets on tree bark tilt their spores into falling air. Some fungi launch them like miniature cannons, using the power of evaporation. Even raindrops help, splashing spores skyward from the surface of a cap. And in some forests, there are mushrooms so perfectly timed that they release their spores just as dawn warms the air and currents begin to rise. A wind-assisted liftoff every morning. Quiet choreography. You follow the path of one spore now, drifting upward, caught in a lazy spiral of air. It hovers for hours, rises higher, rides the updraft over trees, over hills, over roads that never know it passed above. Then down slowly, softly, into a crack in a fallen log. A pause, a breath. And growth begins. You may never notice this world, but your body is part of it. Inside your lungs, on your skin, in your gut. Tiny fungal travelers have always shared space with you. Most do no harm. Some help. They are older than your species, older than mammals, older even than the trees. Long ago, it was fungi that helped the first plants walk out of the water and settle land. They partnered with roots. They offered minerals in exchange for sugars. Without them, green life would not have spread. And still today, spores remind us, motion doesn't need legs. Migration doesn't need wings. Sometimes it only needs air. There is something beautiful in that surrender. How spores let go, trusting the wind to carry them. Not fighting the breeze, but following it. No map, no certainty. Just drift. You wonder what it would be like to move that way. To trust your next moment to a current you cannot see. To find your home not by reaching, but by arriving. Spore after spore, life continues. And not all spores are gentle. Some cause decay, even disease. Mold blooms on forgotten bread. Mildew creeps across leaves. But even then, their role is part of a balance, breaking down what must return to earth. Without spores, the forest would choke on its own past. You lie back and imagine the sky above you, filled with spores, a great drifting library of life. Each cell a page waiting to be read by the right patch of soil. The air you breathe is not empty. It carries memory. And somewhere in the breeze that rustles the leaves nearby, there is a spore looking for its next beginning. You may never see it, but it sees you, or rather it senses your warmth, your breath, the promise of a surface. Even stillness is full of movement. Even the quiet is seeded with life. You rest in that knowledge now, that life, at its smallest and simplest, is always ready to rise. And as you close your eyes, you begin to wonder, if air carries spores, what else might it carry between us? You walk quietly beneath a canopy where light filters like memory. The forest hums, but gently now, a low leafy whisper. You feel the trees around you, tall and still, holding time in their trunks. Their leaves tremble in the breeze, and each breath you take seems to echo theirs. Then, not a sound, but a change. A space where a tree once stood is now open to the sky. The silence there is heavy, but not empty. You walk closer. The tree has fallen. Its roots, once grasping deep into the dark, now rise into the light like frozen waves. Its trunk lies still, moss-covered, bark peeling, fungi beginning their slow dance across its surface. This is not just death. It is release. The tree exhales one last time. Not in breath, but in molecules. Carbonate stored for centuries begins to rise, mixing with the forest air. The slow undoing of its body begins. Each part of it will go somewhere, to soil, to fungus, to beetle, to air. You kneel beside it and place your palm on its bark. It's warm, not from the sun, but from the work already beginning beneath your hand. Decomposition isn't decay, it's continuation. The body of the tree will feed hundreds, thousands. Insects, bacteria, mushrooms, roots of saplings waiting for light. You inhale. The air is rich here, damp, earthy, touched by the scent of rot and renewal. Jasmine again and something more. The smell of lignin breaking down, of hidden fungal feasts, of soil waking up. Even in stillness, transformation hums. Carbon, once pulled from the sky by the tree's leaves, now returns upward. Some of it will become the breath of a fox, some part of the wind. Some will sink into the soil, held by minerals kept for 1,000 years. Every forest holds this secret. Nothing truly ends. In the life of a tree, breath is both beginning and memory. When it was young, it pulled in carbon dioxide and crafted sugars, feeding itself and others. That carbon built its leaves, its trunk, its roots, held silently through storms and seasons. And now, released in fragments, that same breath returns. Look around. Other trees remain standing, their trunks slowly turning toward the light that now enters through the gap. Ferns unfurl. A sapling, once stunted in shadow, stretches its first full leaves. Even the light shifts in tone. The opening in the canopy lets rain fall in narrow columns. The forest floor, awakened, softens. You watch as life repositions itself. Death, in the forest, is not a collapse but a gift. The tree, in falling, feeds the soil. In breaking, it opens space. In exhaling, it reminds the forest to breathe differently. And you, standing beside it, are reminded that you too are always part of a cycle, exhaling what the trees need, inhaling what they offer. Your lungs are shaped by forests, and forests shaped by what you breathe out in return. The fallen tree becomes a bridge, literally, across streams, across gaps, and figuratively, a bridge of time, showing how one life makes room for another. Worms tunnel through its softening wood. Their paths aerate the trunk, allowing fungi to dig deeper. Fungi send hyphae like silk through its heart, dissolving cellulose, unlocking nutrients. Insects nest in the hollowed spaces. Birds feed on the insects. Foxes watch the birds. And slowly, the tree returns. Its atoms don't disappear. They disperse. And what you smell now, what fills your lungs, may be the breath of trees. Long vanished, rain long fallen, fires long cooled. You lie down beside the tree and look up. The forest feels like it's leaning inward, listening with you. There is no rush here, just return. Some of the carbon from this tree may bind with minerals and become part of the soil for generations. Some may rise, join a raindrop, and fall again on another forest, another continent. Its nutrients will nourish young plants, maybe even one small shoot that grows in the crook of its own decaying trunk. A child of the tree, fed by its own ancestor. Isn't it beautiful how death nourishes the same soil that gave birth? The breath of the forest is never just yours or just theirs. It is shared, recycled, offered again and again. You are not outside of it. You are part of the inhale and the exhale, the giving and the letting go. Even as you lie still, the world moves through you. Some trees fall with thunder. Others simply lean, then let go. Some are struck by lightning. Others die standing, fading quietly from the crown downward. But in every ending, there is re-entry into soil, into atmosphere, into story. There's a term scientists use, necromass. It means the mass of the dead. But the forest does not see it that way. It sees it as storage, as generosity, as the reservoir of everything to come. Your hand still rests on the bark. It's rough and underneath softening. It holds time. It held weather, drought, laughter under its shade. Now, it holds life in a different form. You close your eyes. The forest exhales again. Not with wind, but with a feeling, a low grounding. Like a lullaby woven from roots and spores in sunlight turned to sugar. You breathe with it, and as you do, a new question gently forms, curling like mist through your thoughts. When breath ends in one place, where does it begin again? Even silence carries a trace, a scent of geosmin, a hint of sulfur, a note of sweetness in spring air, all born from the earth's quiet exhalation. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you try to hear the air within the ground, that it does not shout. It does not rush. It waits, carried gently through porous stone, released through fissures, shaped by pressure and time. The air inside the earth is not just leftover. It is messenger. It tells of forests that once breathed here, of oceans that covered this land, of fires that raged and the calm that followed. And somewhere beneath you now, a cave breathes in as the tide rises and breathes out when it falls. You wonder, if the air remembers what it touched, then what does the next breath you take remember? And yet, the air within the earth does not only drift, it influences. It calls to seeds nestled in darkness, signals shifts in moisture, warmth, and time. There is language here, though not spoken. Gas concentrations rise, and the seed listens. A molecule of oxygen brushes its shell. A hint of carbon dioxide tells it now. Now the world above may be ready. This is how life begins, not with noise, but with notice. A rootlet stretches into the dark, not knowing where it leads, but sensing the rhythm of breath all around. It follows warmth. It follows moisture. It follows the exhalations of soil. In this way, gases underground are guides. They shape the choices of fungi and roots. They tell microbes when to stir, when to slumber. They govern the dance of nitrogen fixers, those invisible allies that tuck air into soil, transforming what floats above into food below. Even tiny pockets of air create balance in the soil. They make room for water to move, for roots to drink, for worms to twist through the earth without drowning. Too much water, and the air is gone. The ground chokes. Plants gasp. Too little, and nothing grows. The roots cannot breathe. The earth becomes brittle in its silence. So, balance is everything. And air, hidden and unnoticed, is the secret to that balance. You think now of your own breath, how you inhale without thought, yet your body listens to every molecule. Too little oxygen, and your heart races. Too much carbon dioxide, and sleep becomes uneasy. The earth is no different. Its soils, its roots, its life breathe in their own slow, sacred rhythm. You walk through a forest one day and feel a soft give of ground beneath your feet. That lightness is not just roots and leaf litter. It is the gift of aeration, of creatures having tunneled, of the soil having been allowed to breathe. Even in fields where crops grow, farmers speak of healthy soil. They know its scent, its feel. They know that when the earth smells sweet, like rain and roots, then air moves freely within it. Then life has a chance. Sometimes they turn the soil, but only gently, for too much disturbance releases what was meant to be held. And the earth exhales too quickly, like any breath. Its timing matters. You return again in your mind to those ancient pockets, the bubbles in ice, the air in amber, the gas inside rock. You realize the earth is not silent. It breathes stories in every direction, upward through volcanoes, downward through roots, outward through tides, inward through soil. And you, curled now in your warm bed, are part of this breath. As you sleep, your lungs rise and fall with the same rhythm that moves air through the tiniest pore beneath the forest floor. Even in dreams, you remain connected to the whispers in caverns, to the sighs of warming permafrost, to the laughter of methane rising from a swamp, to the hush of a leaf decomposing slowly, sending up its final molecules into the atmosphere it once breathed. You breathe in, and perhaps somewhere a root stirs. You lie still beneath an open sky. Though the air is quiet, it is not still. It moves around you, shaped by unseen hands, by leaves, by stems, by the quiet labor of green. Every plant you pass, every tree, every patch of moss underfoot, they are sculptors of the air. They do not chisel with stone or carve with tools, but with sunlight, water, and breath. You are surrounded by their work. Even now, it begins in the light. A single ray touches a leaf, and a story begins again, as old as life itself. Inside each leaf are tiny, emerald chambers where photosynthesis takes place. There, light is turned into food, and air is rewritten. Chlorophyll, the pigment of green, catches sunlight like a net. It pulls in energy and sets electrons in motion, breaking apart water into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen is used to build sugars. The oxygen, the byproduct, is released. That gift becomes your breath. You inhale deeply, and you do not do it alone. All around you, leaves are exhaling. Trees, grass, algae, even weeds. Every inhale you take is borrowed from a forest, a field, or a single blade of green. And as you exhale, carbon dioxide escapes, the breath of your body. Plants welcome it. They drink it in through stomata, tiny pores on their leaves. They fold your breath into sugars and starches, into wood and fruit. You give, and they give back. You are part of this cycle, an unseen exchange repeated billions of times each day, without sound, without pause. This is what it means to live with plants. To live inside their work. The air around you is their sculpture. Oxygen and carbon held in delicate balance. Change one, and the shape begins to shift, even in the oceans. This story continues. Tiny phytoplankton, smaller than a grain of sand, drift just below the surface, catching light, breathing out oxygen. These microscopic sculptors make more than half the air you breathe. You do not see them, but they are always there, riding waves, tracing sunbeams. You picture it now, Earth, wrapped in a soft, thin veil of air, held in place by gravity, and green, a living atmosphere, always in motion, always in conversation with root and leaf. You imagine shrinking small enough to step inside a leaf. Inside, you see pathways of light, rivers of electrons, enzymes at work. Photosynthesis is not a single moment, but a symphony. It happens slowly, with precision. It is both science and art. And like all art, it leaves a trace. You eat the sugar in a berry. You burn it as energy. Your body is made of light stored in plants. The carbon in your bones may have once hung in the air, caught in the breath of a fern. You are a child of photosynthesis, shaped by the hands of air sculptors. In forests, this cycle becomes vast. Roots pull water from deep below. Leaves stretch toward the sky. A tree inhales and exhales more slowly than you. Not every second, but every season. Its breathing follows the arc of the sun, the turn of the year. And in the Amazon, where trees are thick and layered, the air grows rich. So many leaves, so many mouths opening and closing, shaping the sky above them. The rainforest breathes. Not metaphorically, literally. You feel it even from afar. The balance of the planet depends on forests that gather carbon and release oxygen. When they are cut, burned, or cleared, the shape of the air shifts. The sculpture changes. You wonder if the earth notices. And yet, even in small spaces, the work continues. The houseplant on your windowsill breathes quietly beside you. A lawn, a rooftop garden, a wild patch of green behind a fence. These too are sculptors, even weeds, even algae blooming in puddles. All of them shaping, balancing, giving. And still, it is easy to forget that every breath you take is shared. That your lungs are not the only ones working. You are not alone. In your breathing, you never have been. You begin to understand that life is not only what is visible. It is also the unseen, the invisible symphony of gas and green, of sunlight caught in air remade. You rest inside their architecture. They hold you without walls. There is grace in this. In the way leaves work silently, without praise. In the way photosynthesis keeps going, season after season, light after light. You lie back, you breathe in, and you feel it, how deeply you are connected to the air, the light, the leaves, how each part of you belongs. You wonder what other forms of communication plants might carry, if they shape not just gases, but stories, signals, memory. You breathe out, slowly. Somewhere, a leaf takes it in. The sculpture continues, unseen. And in that stillness, a question drifts toward you, soft as pollen. What else might plants be saying? Not in air, but in silence, in soil, in root and rhythm. You sit in silence, yet the air around you is never still. Not truly. Even now, tiny passengers ride the currents, floating, drifting, waiting. Spores. They are smaller than dust, lighter than ash. Each one is a quiet possibility, a single cell carrying the memory of a mushroom, a mold, or a hidden fungal thread beneath the forest floor. You breathe, and you may breathe one in. Don't worry, your body knows them. It always has. They rise from the damp underside of logs, from the gills of mushrooms, from invisible mycelial highways running beneath your feet. One breath of wind, and they lift. Millions at a time. More than you could ever count, dancing in the golden light like pollen, like dreams. UNANCHOR. It is. The air is their ocean. Like seeds without roots, spores do not choose where they land. They surrender to the invisible, to drafts, breezes, thermals rising off sunlit stone. Some travel a few inches. Others cross continents, oceans, decades. There are spores frozen in ice cores, buried in peat, lingering in sealed tombs of time, still alive, still waiting. Even water finds its way through these tiny highways and open pockets. Where there was once dense, unbreathable ground, these architects have created space. And in that space, things can grow. Without them, the soil would harden. Rain would pool. Roots would suffocate. The delicate dance between earth and life would slow to a crawl. You think of cities, your cities, skyscrapers, roads, subways, built with planning, ambition, noise. But here, beneath you, cities rise in silence. There are no lights, no blueprints, only the soft language of touch, scent, and shared purpose. Ants follow trails left by invisible signals. Worms follow moisture. Termites follow temperature. And, still, somehow, they build in harmony. No single creature controls it. But together, they shape the soil as sculptors shape clay. From inside, with care. In their world, cooperation is not a choice, it is survival. A colony thrives only when each part plays its role. Scout, builder, farmer, queen. You feel a sense of awe, not just at their labor, but at their invisibility. All this, and you never see them, but the ground knows. The trees know. Even the rain knows as it slips through their tunnels, guided by what they've made. You return to the earth with new eyes. You place your hand on the soil and imagine the movement beneath, a living braid of tunnels, roots, and breath. The soil does not rest. It shifts quietly beneath your home, beneath forests and fields, always being rewritten by these hidden hands. They leave no signature. Their work is not art to be admired, but foundation, the kind you only notice when it is gone. Still, without them, the planet would unravel. Crops would weaken. Forests would falter. The great systems of air, water, and life would lose their balance, and so they continue unseen but essential, working in the dark to shape the light. You breathe deeply. Even your breath, returned to the ground in time, will join their cycle, feeding the roots that follow the tunnels they create. And now you wonder, if life moves through soil like thought moves through a brain, what else is being communicated? Below? Somewhere in the darkness, a root begins to reach, sensing water, seeking light, following a path made long ago. You lie still, and beneath you, time stirs, not in seconds or minutes, but in the quiet rhythm of stone breaking into soil. The world you know rests on ancient bones. Mountains that once surged skyward have slouched into rounded hills. Hard edges softened, scraped, and scattered by patience. You press your palm to the earth, and deep below that point lies stone. Granite, sandstone, basalt, once molten, once uplifted, now being undone. Weathering, not with rage, but with rhythm. Rain falls. The water slips into tiny cracks in rock. And then, on cold nights, it freezes. Ice expands like a breath held too long, and the rock splits, just slightly. Over years, centuries, the cracks grow. Not by strength, but by insistence. Not by speed, but by return. In spring, rain comes again, and again, and again. This is how mountains wear down, how boulders become gravel, how gravel becomes sand, how sand begins to hold life. You imagine a cliff, wind sweeping across its face. Grains of dust lift from the surface, carried on the breeze like wandering thoughts. The wind sculpts. It polishes, grinds, carries away. Every grain lost is a story started. Soil in the making, born of ancient stone. But wind and water don't work alone. Roots play their part, not just passengers in soil, but makers of it. A tree seed lands in a crevice. Its root grows slowly, pressing into the gap, searching for moisture. Over time, it wedges stone apart, not forcefully, but with quiet insistence, and the minerals released, calcium, iron, magnesium, nourish the soil, becoming part of a cycle older than forests. You think of lichen. Soft, crusty, unremarkable. Yet they are pioneers. A partnership of fungus and algae, living on bare rock, breaking it down molecule by molecule. They do not move quickly, but they endure. You picture their work. 1,000 years pass, and the bare stone holds a dusting of lichen. Another 1,000, now moss, then soil, then life. This is the alchemy of slowness. Transformation without fire. Creation through surrender. And as the rock weathers, something new emerges. The soil beneath your feet, the skin of the earth. Soil is not just dirt. It is memory held loosely. A mix of crushed rock, decayed roots, forgotten rains. Each layer tells a story. Topsoil, rich and dark, born from leaf fall and insect dance. Below that, subsoil, pale and dense, a record of minerals leached and carried down by water. Deeper still, the parent material, rock only just beginning to forget what it was. And, finally, the bedrock, stoic, slow, still holding secrets from when the earth was young. You drift now following the journey of one pebble. It breaks from a cliff in a distant mountain, tumbles down in a rockfall, and lands in a stream. The water carries it, smoothing its edges, grinding it gently against others until it's no longer rock, but sand. And still it moves, perhaps into a river, then to a floodplain, where it rests, buried, transformed, waiting to feed roots or catch rain. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest particle of stone has purpose thought as you rest. You realize that even your bones, your teeth, your blood, they hold elements weathered from rock long ago. Calcium from limestone, iron from ancient sediments, magnesium from the crust of vanished oceans. You are not separate from stone. You are softened stone, weathered into breath and warmth. And yet the weathering never ends. Rocks are still breaking. Soil is still forming. The earth is still becoming itself. Time doesn't chisel. It caresses. It doesn't force. It returns over and over until change begins. You feel the comfort in that. Change doesn't have to be sudden. Erosion happens slowly. Even the hardest things yield, given enough time. Outside, rain might be falling. Not loudly, but in gentle rhythm. Each drop a sculptor. Each pause between drops, a promise. You wonder now, if stone can become soil, what of the life that grows? In that soil, what does it remember, and what does it reach for? Somewhere beneath you, a seed senses the softened ground and begins to open. Beneath your feet, the earth holds its breath. Not a sudden inhale or sigh, but a long, slow retention, the kind of breath that lingers for centuries. You picture the soil, dark and quiet, but within it lie tiny bubbles. Gas trapped in the weave of roots and minerals, exhaled by microbes released by decay. Each bubble is a time capsule, invisible to your eyes but full of memory. Oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide, all speaking softly of what once lived here. You lie still, and your imagination drifts downward, not to magma or metal, but to spaces filled with air, hidden in unexpected places. There are pockets in the permafrost, frozen landscapes, ancient and pale, that lock away the atmosphere of forgotten days. You imagine a core of ice, drilled high in the Arctic, drawn up slowly from the deep cold. Inside it, tiny spheres of gas, trapped thousands of years ago, when mammoths wandered and forests crept toward the poles. Scientists cut the core, warm it ever so slightly, and the air escapes with a hush, a ghost of a climate long gone. You breathe now, knowing that the air filling your lungs shares kinship with the air of 100,000 years. And deeper still, in limestone caverns and volcanic rock, gases pool in silence. Helium from radioactive decay, methane from buried forests, carbon dioxide, shifting with pressure and time. You wander in your mind into one of these caves. The air feels different, heavier, ancient. Each gust from a crevice carries not just moisture, but the memory of stone breaking down, of microbes, digesting long-dead roots in peat bogs and wetlands. Gases rise slowly from the work of bacteria. Methane floats upward like forgotten laughter, the byproduct of life feasting on the past. You think of a decaying leaf, how it falls, is buried, and eventually becomes something else entirely. Its atoms drift, its gases escape, and in the stillness beneath, the earth exhales again. Sometimes, this breath is sudden. A sinkhole opens. A cave collapses. A vent hisses in a geothermal spring. And with it, ancient air resurfaced. Other times, it's slow. Roots aerate the soil. Termites tunnel. Worms leave tiny passageways for oxygen to move. Even the smallest creatures help the ground breathe. You imagine a rice paddy at dusk, water shimmering, plants swaying. Below the surface, the soil is alive, releasing methane, a quiet breath of the planet's fermentation. And in deserts too, where rain may not fall for months, the cracked surface holds tiny volts of air beneath the sun-baked crust. Each place has its own scent, its own rhythm of exhale. Even volcanoes, those fierce, sudden breathers, release carbon and water vapor that were buried deep inside the planet's lungs. And these emissions, though sometimes violent, are part of the same slow story, the Earth breathing in cycles. You wonder now how much air lies not just above us, but within us and below us. How many stories of Earth are not written in stone, but whispered in gas dot. You are breathing a blend of time. Air once cycled through forests that no longer stand. Air once held in ice, now free. Air that passed through the lungs of animals, now extinct. It is all connected. The deep earth, the surface soil, the clouds, and your breath. And when you walk through a field, you are pressing on soft ground that holds more than roots. It holds sighs. It holds songs of warmth and cold, of growth and rest. You've felt this before. A breeze before the rain. A shift in temperature when the wind changes direction. The sky's breath touches your skin before you even notice. And yet, so much of it is distant, moving in currents you can't see, only feel. The Coriolis effect, born from Earth's spin, gently curves these flows to the right in the north, to the left in the south. This invisible turning of the winds creates trade winds, westerlies, polar easterlies, bands of motion spiraling around. The planet, each with its own quiet song. Birds listen. Migrating geese ride these rivers of air, adjusting wing and angle to glide for hours without a single flap. Butterflies follow the warm breath of spring. Spiders spin silk and let themselves be carried, floating like airborne sailors on strands of silk. Even they know the sky's rhythm. Your breath slows as you think of it. This quiet choreography overhead. You cannot hold it in your hand, but it shapes everything around you. A breeze becomes a storm. A gust carries pollen to a waiting flower. A gentle push of air clears smoke or brings in the scent of something blooming far away. The sky is not still. Even on calm days, it stirs. With invisible fingers, thermals rise from sunlit fields, drawing birds upward in spirals of warmth. At night, the air cools and settles. Dew forms, fog creeps low. But even then, the wind keeps moving, shifting warmth, balancing pressure, carrying the day into the dark. You think of ancient sailors, reading the wind like a map, navigating not with roads, but with moving air, trusting the breath of the world to guide them. You think of how wind carries not only weather, but stories. Smoke signals, song, prayer flags, all trusting the air to lift and carry their message. And now, in this moment, you feel it again. The soft press of air on your forehead. A reminder that the sky is alive, and you are not separate from it. With every inhale, you take in air that has traveled the world. Through forests and cities, past volcanoes and ocean spray, over mountains and dust plains. It carries traces of pine, salt, soil, cloud of every place it's touched and every life it has passed. You breathe in the sky's journey. And in. That breath is a question, not loud, but lingering. If the air connects us all, what else moves unseen, shaping the world with such quiet power? Somewhere, a single ant stirs underground, guided by scent, by air, by rhythm. You take a breath. The air enters you, silent and unseen. But within that breath is carbon, woven into the very story of life. Carbon is not loud. It does not glow or roar or sing. It lingers, it binds, it moves slowly, and it never disappears. You are made of it. Your skin, your blood, your bones. Almost every part of you is held together by carbon's quiet geometry. It is the backbone of life's molecules, not just in you, but in trees, mushrooms, whales, hummingbirds. All life spun from the same simple thread. You imagine carbon now as a soft black line looping through time. It drifts from volcanoes to clouds, from leaves to lungs, from ocean to atmosphere and back again. This is the carbon cycle, a slow, patient breath the planet takes. Not in seconds, but in centuries. Not in lungs, but in forests, rivers, and stone. You follow a single carbon atom in your mind. It begins deep underground, locked inside a piece of limestone, pressed from ancient shells and coral. For millions of years, it rests there, quiet beneath the surface. Until the earth shifts, a mountain rises, the rock crumbles, rain touches its edge. Slowly, over time, the carbon is freed, washed into a stream, carried through roots into a blade of grass, where it waits, glowing in the sun. Photosynthesis, a plant's soft alchemy. Sunlight, water, carbon dioxide turned into sugar, into growth, into leaf and stem. Now this carbon becomes part of the plant, its breath, its seeds. And when you eat the plant, that same carbon becomes part of you. You carry ancient atoms inside you. Atoms once held by forests, by dinosaurs, by trilobites swimming in prehistoric seas. There is no new carbon, only traveling carbon. And when you breathe out, some of that carbon leaves you again, a gift back to the atmosphere, to be carried, shared, transformed once more. You exhale, and your breath becomes part of the wind. Carried into a tree, drawn into a leaf, spun into sugar, and stored in a ring of wood. A tree grows, not from soil alone, but from the air. Carbon, lifted gently from the sky and built into body. Forests are made of air. Mountains once were coral reefs. And you are a temporary collection of elements passed hand to hand by time. Carbon teaches you something soft but profound, that nothing you are is ever truly lost, that everything transforms, that endings are simply changes in form. A fallen leaf decays. Fungi, bacteria, worms, all play their part. And slowly, its carbon returns to the soil, to the roots, to the air. You picture a campfire glowing in the dark. The crackle of logs is carbon's farewell. Energy released from ancient sunlight stored in wood. Now returned to warmth and ash. And even that ash, even the smoke that rises, becomes part of the cycle. Spiraling upward, joining clouds, scattering light. The carbon in your body will someday return to soil, to sea, to air, where it will wait for its next chapter. This is not a loss. This is a loop, a reassurance that you are part of something wide and patient, something that remembers every form it has ever taken. In ocean depths, phytoplankton drift, absorbing carbon from the sky. Tiny glowing cells turning light into matter. They feed the sea, feed the world, feed the cycle. When they die, they sink. And with them, carbon sinks too, settling into the twilight zone of the ocean, where it rests in silence for a very long time. The deep ocean is the great memory of carbon, a holding place, a waiting room, until one day, slow currents lift it again, and life begins anew. You return to your breath, the simple rise and fall of your chest, and you wonder how. Many other lives have shared this carbon. Perhaps a bear in a distant forest. Perhaps a pine tree swaying on a windy cliff. Perhaps something long extinct, yet still whispering through the particles you carry. Carbon's loop is not just scientific, it's poetic. It reminds you that you belong to Earth, to time, to transformation. There's a comfort in that. To know you are not fixed, but flowing, part of a loop that has no sharp edges, only curves. Your thoughts slow, You feel the carbon inside you, not as weight but as story, a quiet thread tying you to the stars that first forged it, to the roots that crave it, to the breath that releases it. And now you wonder, if carbon moves so patiently and powerfully, what of the creatures that move it with purpose? Those who dig, chew, build, and wander the soil. You close your eyes, just as a tiny mandible lifts a crumb of earth. And the work begins again. Beneath your quiet steps, something stirs. You walk through a meadow, soft with grasses, or a garden path made of stone. And under each footfall is an entire world in motion. You don't see it, but the earth below is alive with architects, creatures small and tireless, who shape the very ground you trust to hold you. They have no blueprints, no tools. Yet their cities stretch deep, intricate networks of chambers and tunnels engineered. With precision only instinct understands. You picture a single ant, no longer than your fingernail, carving out a grain of soil and carrying it upward. She is not alone. Thousands, sometimes millions, move with her. Together, they build vast underground empires. Ant colonies can sprawl beneath your feet like shadowed forests, some with vents for air, chambers for farming, paths that twist. Like veins through the soil, their tunnels are not just homes. They allow air to flow, water to trickle, roots to breathe. They mix layers of earth, blending nutrients, turning stillness into a living current. Worms join the work. Soft, silent. Travelers moving through darkness with patient mouths. As they eat decaying matter, they leave behind richer soil, transformed. Their castings, a gentle word for waste, are laced with nutrients. Each coil of earth a tiny alchemical offering to seeds above and fungi below. You recall the soft rain from a day before, how the ground darkened, how the air smelled of life. It was the worms coming to the surface, reconnecting sky and soil with each tender breath. And then there are termites, those misunderstood engineers of the tropics. You imagine their towering mounds, sculpted from mud and spit, as tall as trees, as complex as lungs. Inside, chambers pulse with purpose. Some for nurseries, others for farming fungus. Some simply for air, carefully ventilated to cool the colony's breath. These creatures do not rest. Day and night, they shift particles, moving matter, shaping structure, writing the architecture of life beneath our notice. You begin to see the soil differently now, not as background, but as a collaboration. An underground society built grain by grain, breath by breath. A single teaspoon of healthy soil can contain more organisms than there are people on Earth. Each microscopic being, nematode, mite, bacteria, adding its own fingerprint to the structure, but the ones who carve and tunnel, who mix and turn and rearrange, are the ones who create the architecture itself, the scaffold on which life above can stand. You imagine the forest floor, roots reaching downward, thirsty for air and nutrients. They follow the paths made by ants, by worms, by termites, taking advantage of what has already been built. You think of Mount Etna, Mauna Loa, Fuji, Krakatoa, names that echo with stories. But beneath each name is the same truth. The earth must breathe, just like you. You feel the kinship, strange and deep. Your body holds heat too, burning food into energy, balancing pressure with each breath, each beat. You too need moments of release, to exhale what builds, to transform tension into motion, to let go and begin again. And just like the earth, your release may sometimes look like fire, sometimes like steam, but always it brings change. Some ancient cultures worshipped volcanoes. Others feared them. But all, in some way, understood. These were sacred mouths of the planet, portals between surface and core, between now and origin, between breath and flame. When a volcano erupts, it sends ash into the sky that can circle the globe, changing sunsets, cooling summers, reminding us that nothing on Earth acts alone. Volcanoes help shape the atmosphere you breathe. They brought water vapor, carbon, nitrogen, the raw ingredients of habitability. The sky began in part from the ground's fire, and they still speak. Not every day, not loudly, but through tremors, heat, gases, subtle signs, like a deep breath before a sigh. Scientists now watch them with sensors, measuring tilt, gas, rumble, trying to listen in on the Earth's intention, trying to understand its rhythm, because the Earth's breath is not ours to command, only to witness, to respect, to learn from, to prepare for. You feel that heat now, not threatening, but grounding. The knowledge that beneath all this green and blue, there is red, molten, a live dot, and it connects. The deep earth to surface life, the crust to the air, the ancient past to this present breath. Volcanoes remind you that change is not always quiet, but it can still be necessary. And that even eruption is part of balance. You imagine the molten world beneath your feet, swirling in slow spirals, patient but powerful, shaping continents, renewing land. You breathe, slowly, and feel your own pressure soften. A quiet acknowledgement that you too are a vessel of fire and breath. And now, as the ash settles, as the mountain rests again, you look toward the cooled lava, black, cracked, steaming slightly, and wonder. You kneel near the ground, still and open. The earth beneath you is dark, soft, textured with time. You reach out, slowly, and lift a small handful of soil. It crumbles gently between your fingers, alive with memory. Then you inhale that smell. Rich, familiar, grounding. A quiet combination of dampness and depth, as if the world itself has exhaled. You've known this scent since childhood. From gardens after rain, from forests in spring, from a single potted plant on a windowsill. It never announces itself loudly. It waits for you to notice. This scent has a name, geosmin. From the Greek geo, meaning earth, and osm, meaning smell, earth smell. A name that feels like a whisper tucked inside the soil. And yet, this is no perfume made by plants or petals. It comes from deep within, crafted by tiny architects of the underground. Bacteria, called actinomycetes. These microscopic beings live quietly, spending much of their time helping to break down organic matter, leaves, wood, fallen creatures, transforming endings into beginnings. In dry times, they lie in wait, conserving. And when rain touches the ground, they wake, releasing geosmin as part of their gentle work. A signal, a scent, a story in the air. You breathe again, slower. Now, the smell is more than pleasant. It's emotional. It tells your body that life is present here. Geosmin binds to receptors in your nose with surprising strength. So strong that even a few parts per trillion can awaken your memory. A memory is what this smell stirs first. A childhood moment. In wet grass, the edge of a stream, a soft garden spade in the hands of someone you love. It isn't just you. Humans across cultures respond deeply to the scent of soil. Some say it feels safe, others sacred, but nearly all call it familiar. Perhaps it's because we evolved alongside this scent. For millions of years, this was the air of survival. The smell of fertile ground, of drinkable water, of places where life could grow. Even camels, it turns out, can detect geosmin, smelling it from miles away in the desert, seeking out oases, where microbial life, and thus water, must be. The Earth's quiet signal, traveling on the wind. In that way, this smell becomes a message, not just from bacteria, but from the planet itself. It tells you, life has returned. Rain has come. The cycle begins again. You sit longer with your handful of soil. It no longer feels like just dirt. It feels like a living book, a woven texture of carbon and mineral, of stories too small to see dot within it. The geosmin mingles with other compounds, humic acids from long-decayed roots, aromas from fungal threads, trace scents from leaves. Turn to mulch. It is not a single smell. It is a chorus, one that speaks of breakdown and rebirth, of endings that become nourishment. This is the scent of decomposition, and yet it smells like life. Because in the soil, the two are never far apart. One feeds the other in a slow, endless loop. You think of compost now, of food scraps and leaf litter turned to black gold. Even there, geosmin plays its part, marking the transformation with its fragrance. The soil is a threshold between what has been and what will be, and this smell is its greeting. Not loud, not urgent, just present. It reminds you of slowness, of quiet things at work beneath the surface, of time passing not in seconds, but in cycles, of life not always seen, but always felt. You wonder what your body knows of this. Your own skin, your gut, your lungs, each filled with microbial companions, some distant cousins of those who perfume the soil. And maybe that's why the scent feels like home. Not just because it reminds you of gardens and rains, but because it reminds your cells of something older, a belonging too deep for words. Even astronauts speak of longing for this smell. When far from Earth, what they miss is not noise, but texture, the way air smells after a storm, the way soil hums in the nose with memory. Some scientists dream of capturing geosmin in bottles, to take it into space, to remind the body of Earth's breath, to soothe the homesick heart with one inhalation. You sit back now, letting the soil slip through your fingers. The scent lingers on your palms, clings to the edges of your sleeve, as if the earth is not ready to let go. And you, too, aren't quite ready to rise. Not yet. You want to sit longer with the feeling, with the calm rhythm of breath and soil. Because the next time you smell rain on dry ground, or walk through a wooded trail in early spring, you'll recognize this scent not as something new, but as something remembered. You close your eyes one last time and listen. The earth is not speaking with words. It speaks in scent, in moisture, in stillness. And you, simply by breathing, are part of its language. And now, with that scent still on your skin, you wonder what other stories the ground might tell. Not through air, but through shape. Through patterns of stone, of bone, of buried time. Beneath the scent, a deeper silence waits, pressed into layers of memory. You lie back and look upward. The sky stretches above you, wide and weightless, painted in slow-moving layers, blue, white, and golden gray. You can't see the air moving, but you feel it brush your cheek. This wind, so gentle now, was born far away. Maybe over the ocean, stirred by the heat of equatorial sun. Maybe at the edge of a cold front, where warm and cool air met in a soft collision. You breathe in, and the sky exhales. Air moves. Not randomly, but rhythmically. It flows in patterns, giant slow spirals that encircle the planet. Wings rise near the equator, where sunlight strikes directly, and sink near the poles, where cold thickens the air. These motions, rising, falling, curling eastward, form Earth's atmospheric circulation. Not just weather, but a planetary breath, a kind of invisible tide in the air. You close your eyes and let your imagination lift you upward. Higher than treetops, higher than clouds. You float near the jet stream, a ribbon of wind racing through the upper atmosphere. It's fast here. But from your stillness, it feels soft, like being carried in a current that knows where it's going. Below you, the world turns. Forests blur into deserts, mountains fade into ocean. This fast-moving wind, born from contrasts in temperature and pressure, meanders like a river in the sky. Not straight, but curving, dipping, swaying. With the seasons, you wonder how something invisible can be so powerful. And yet, it shapes storms, carries rains, moves warmth across oceans and chill into valleys. It even touches seeds. A single dandelion fluff rising from the soil can travel thousands of kilometers, carried by wind, lifted by thermals, until it finds a place soft enough to land. Dust, too, is a passenger. Fine particles from the Sahara can ride high-altitude winds across the Atlantic, feeding Amazon rainforests with ancient mineral memory. The sky, you realize, is not just air. It's a corridor, a transporter of life, of climate, of continuity. The slow circulation above you connects everything below. High above, clouds are born where warm, moist air rises. They are made of tiny droplets, gathered around the smallest seeds, bits of salt, dust, bacteria. The wind shapes them, stretching them into long feathers, piling them into towers. And then, when the air cools just enough, they open and fall as rain, snow, mist. Each raindrop is a gentle collision. It strikes the ground, releasing tiny air pockets of soil scent, lifting bacteria and minerals into a fine mist. This is how rain announces itself, not with thunder, but with fragrance. The ground responds. In silence, worms rise toward the surface, seeking breath where water has not yet pooled. Spores stir. Fungi bloom. Microbes stretch after sleep. You imagine the dance below. A crust of dry soil softens. Hairline fractures swell. Life, dormant, dusty, waiting, begins to hum again. Even seeds, long buried, feel the shift. Water touches their outer shell, cracking the hard silence that kept them still. Inside, energy wakes. Roots whisper down. Rain isn't just water, it's memory. Every drop contains particles from oceans, from windblown dust, from soot and salt in sky. And the soil receives it all, like an old friend returning. In deserts, this union is more profound. One rare storm can bring a landscape back from the edge. Microbes hidden in crusts bloom with color. Mosses unroll. Flowers appear, as if summoned by a forgotten spell. And in forests, rain slides down trunks, fills the hollows of leaves, drips slowly into the network of roots and fungi. Nothing is rushed. All is welcome. Each raindrop shapes more than just soil. It carries nutrients, transports microbes, binds particles of dust, and soothes the ground's surface. It is both sculptor and balm. You hear the rhythm shift. The drops come faster now. A full rain has begun. It patters on windows, sinks into lawns and gutters, echoes against roofs like a lullaby for stone. You think of how long this has been happening. Before cities, before language, before humans traced constellations with their eyes. The sky has wept and the ground has answered. It is not sadness. Rain is not sorrow. It is simply the sky's way of remembering its place, of touching the earth and saying, I have not forgotten. You close your eyes and let the sound carry you. Each drop connects the layers of the world, cloud to leaf, air to skin, dust to dream. And somewhere in that connection, you breathe. You too are made of water. It courses through you, not just in blood or tears, but in the quiet chemistry of each cell. Rain nourishes more than soil. It softens tension. It slows time. It draws you inward to listen, to remember that growth begins in the moment after stillness. As puddles gather, the world becomes reflective. Streets turn to mirrors. Branches bend to greet themselves. You wonder what the soil sees in the sky's face, what memories rise with the scent of the storm. Even in cities, where concrete seems to deny the earth, rain finds its way, down cracks, into drains, seeping into hidden pockets of dirt. Where roots, fungi, and forgotten seeds still wait, the rain eases now, lightens. What began as silence has become song, and now slips gently into hush again. But everything it touched has changed. The soil is darker, open, alive. The air smells of moss, stone, and something unnameable. A reminder that even the smallest touch can awaken worlds. And you sit there, wrapped in the after-rain stillness, feeling not just clean, but reconnected, as if something in you has been gently turned back on. The same way a seed knows it's time. And you wonder, if a single drop can awaken so much, what might happen when a stream begins to form? When water flows not just in moments, but in movement? You stand at the edge of the sea. Salt on your lips, wind brushing your skin, waves, folding and unfolding like breath made visible. It feels alive, not just in motion, but in presence. The ocean is not just water. It is rhythm. It is memory. It is a breath that spans the globe, slow and massive, yet inseparably connected to your own. You breathe in. The air is fresh, tinged with salt and distance. But did you know that nearly half of the oxygen you inhale comes not from trees, but from the sea? Tiny beings drift just below the surface. Phytoplankton, plant-like, microscopic, ancient, invisible to the eye, yet luminous in their role. They dance in sunlight and create life with every flicker. Each cell floats freely, bobbing in waves, riding currents, catching rays of sun that penetrate the upper layers of water. With light, they split molecules, taking carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. You inhale, and somewhere a plankton exhales. Their breath becomes yours. Yours becomes theirs. This invisible exchange ties you to the sea more deeply than you know. The surface of the ocean acts like a lung. It draws in carbon from the sky, absorbing, holding, dissolving it. Much of the carbon humans release ends up here, not in the air. Waves, wind, and temperature stir this great breath. Colder waters absorb more, pulling carbon deeper, where it can be locked away for centuries in the dark. You imagine drifting just above the surface, face toward the sky. The hum of unseen life blooming beneath you is not stillness you feel, but a quiet pulsing, the inhale of the oceans. Some of that carbon is used, quickly, by plankton and seaweed, by shell builders and coral reefs. Some of it is stored, sinking with dead cells and organic debris to the depths out there. In the cold blackness, carbon is tucked away. Out in the folds of marine snow, a soft, steady rain of particles that never sees the sun again. You think of the ocean as a body, one vast, slow-moving organism. Surface as skin, currents as veins, plankton as breath and bloodstream. Even the great whales take part. They dive, feed, rise, and with their movement, stir the deep. Their waste fertilizes the surface, feeding blooms of plankton, continuing the circle. The ocean breathes not in seconds, but in seasons, in centuries. Its lungs span hemispheres. What it exhales, you inhale. What you exhale, it slowly takes in. And like any breath, this system has limits. Warming waters can hold less gas. Stratified layers reduce mixing. Too much carbon can tip the balance, making waters more acidic, more fragile. Corals weaken, shells thin. The rhythm becomes less stable, less sure. And yet the ocean tries to keep breathing. Even now, it inhales more than it exhales. The sea surface is constantly in conversation with the sky. Raindrops fall, waves break, gas exchanges like whispered words without pause. Without need for recognition. At night, the sun disappears, but the plankton do not. Some sink, some rest, some rise in the world's largest migration, up from the deep at dusk, down again by dawn. You float in thought now, imagining the weight of the water, the life within, the slow turning of a system larger than any one person. And yet, You are not outside of it. You are part of this breath, part of this inhale. Even if you never see the ocean, its air fills your lungs. Its rhythm matches your own. The ocean is not distant. It lives in your bloodstream, your bones, your breath every morning. You carry a trace of it wherever you go. You sit with this knowing that the sea breathes and you breathe with it. That deep below, light touches life, and life, in turn, gives you the gift of air. And as you picture this invisible exchange, this planetary inhalation, you begin to wonder if such tiny creatures can shape the atmosphere. You stand at the base of a mountain, quiet and massive. Its slopes were snow, forests, stone, the skin of time. It looks still, timeless, but you know better. Beneath your feet, beneath the rock and root, something stirs. Not urgently, not in anger, but with the slow breath of a sleeping giant. The earth holds heat in its belly, a memory of formation, of impact and friction, of ancient collisions and radioactive decay. And sometimes that heat rises deep within. Molten rock churns, magma, glowing with trapped gas and pressure. It is not wild. It is patient. It waits for weakness, for cracks, for space to exhale. You cannot hear it from the surface. The volcanoes are always listening to themselves. Tectonic plates shift. Water seeps into stone. The planet flexes slowly, deliberately. And then, when the time is right, it exhales, not with lungs, but through vents, fissures, cones. A sudden bloom of heat and force, ash climbing skyward, lava spilling like glowing honey, gases released. In a breath that has waited thousands of years, it is dramatic, yes. But it is not rage. It is release. A returning of pressure to balance. You watch from a distance, or maybe from a dream, and feel the warmth in the air change. The scent of mineral, sulfur, something metallic and alive. Volcanoes are not just destroyers. They are creators too. Every island in the Pacific, every patch of fertile volcanic soil was born from this fire. Lava, when cooled, becomes land. Ash, when settled, feeds forests. Gases, once lifted into the sky, shape climate over ages. Nothing is wasted. Everything returns. Carbon dioxide, the same gas you exhale, also flows from these fiery mouths. Volcanoes release it slowly, contributing to the balance of the atmosphere. Too much, and the world warms. Too little, and the planet freezes. But the Earth has its cycles, longer than lifetimes, older than memory. You imagine standing at the rim of a caldera, watching steam rise like breath from a sleeping beast. Below, the magma shifts, restless yet rooted, carving pathways through stone. Not all eruptions explode. Some ooze, some whisper, a gentle flow over weeks, like thick paint pulled by gravity. Other volcanoes are quiet for centuries, building pressure, grain by grain, molecule by molecule, until one day they speak, not with warning, but with inevitability. The planet, you realize, is never still. Even when it seems calm, beneath the crust is a sea of motion, and volcanoes are its voice. You pause. Breathe in. The air is rich, not with scent, but with presence. It carries the quiet breath of trees. Each leaf, each needle, drawing light from the sun and turning it into air. You are not the only one breathing. The forest breathes with you. Trees do not have lungs, but they are not silent in their respiration. They inhale carbon dioxide through tiny pores called stomata, opening like mouths when the sun touches them. They sip light and air, and in return, they give back oxygen, the breath you now hold. Photosynthesis, the word sounds technical, clinical, but in practice, it is a kind of alchemy. Sunlight is captured, water is split, carbon is rearranged, and the result is life. You imagine a leaf as a tiny green chamber, lit from within. Sunlight enters, and molecules begin their slow dance. Carbon from your last exhale might now become sugar in that leaf. Your breath becoming part of a tree's body. That sugar travels down into the trunk, into the roots, where it might be shared with fungi or stored for the winter. Trees remember summer in their roots, just as you remember warmth in your bones. They carry seasons not on calendars, but in sap and silence. Each day, trees breathe in patterns. When the light fades, their stomata close. At night, they rest, not entirely, but gently. Their breath slows, just like yours. In the stillness, you begin to hear the rhythm. Not sound, exactly, but a sensation. The rise and fall of photosynthesis, of water pulled skyward, of roots exchanging minerals with soil in secret. You feel it in your own body. How your breath matches the forest's quiet exhale. You are no longer a visitor, but part of the atmosphere being shaped. This is not metaphor. It is biology made beautiful. One large tree can produce enough oxygen in a season to keep you breathing for weeks. And yet, it does so quietly, asking for nothing in return, only space, light, and time. A single leaf may live a few months. A tree, centuries. A forest, perhaps millennia. But all depend on this daily breath, invisible, essential, intimate. You sit now beneath a canopy of green. Above you, leaves tilt toward the sun, like faces drawn to warmth. They tremble slightly. In the breeze, their edges catching light, their insides quietly transforming it. Below you, roots branch out like mirror images of limbs. The forest above and the forest below are not separate. They are reflections, joined by breath, by balance, by being. Air moves through both, binding them in invisible threads. You think of the Amazon, the boreal forests, the mangroves, and cloud forests, each one breathing in rhythm with the earth. Their exhale forms clouds. Their breath shapes climate. They are not just scenery. They are lungs of the world. When forests are cleared, the breath shortens. When trees are lost, the air grows thin. Carbon lingers longer. The sky holds more heat, and the balance tilts, almost imperceptibly, toward unrest. But trees also return. Given time, they rise again, from seed, from root, from wind-blown saplings. They do not rush, but they do not stop. Each new shoot is a promise. I will breathe with you again. You close your eyes and listen for the forest's breath. Not just the wind in branches, but the movement of gas through pores. The lift of water from soil to sky. The faint green hum of life being made. It is not loud. It is not fast. But it is always there, always happening, as sure as your own breathing. Steady, small, sacred. You are part of that cycle, even now. Every time you exhale, you give trees what they need. Every time they inhale, they build leaves, wood, shadow. You are linked by necessity, a partnership written in molecules, carried in silence. Even the trees in cities, on sidewalks, in courtyards, continue this exchange. Their breath does not ask whether you notice. It simply continues, for your sake and for its own. And as the day dims and the light bends toward dusk, the leaves close their pores. The forest holds its breath for the night, and so do you, slow, steady, still. You rest in the shelter of this living cathedral, not made of stone, but of bark and branch and breath. You begin to wonder, if trees can shape the sky, what might shape the very ground they grow from? Beneath their roots, a different kind of architect waits. Small, tireless, and always building. You sit beside a window. The city hums softly around you. Traffic murmurs in the distance, neon glows, and concrete stretches in every direction. It feels like the natural world has stepped aside, as if the soil has gone quiet beneath the weight of human intention. But it hasn't. Not really. Beneath your building, beneath the sidewalks and subway tunnels, the earth remains. It is compressed, reshaped, perhaps wounded, but not gone. Soil still breathes under cities. Even the tiniest cracks in pavement offer a passage for life. A seed finds its way through a seam, and before long, a weed lifts its head like a whisper through the concrete. But there is more than plants. Worms still live beneath alleyways, moving in coiled slow motion. Microscopic fungi thread their way through basement walls. Bacteria flourish in sewer-slicked soil, in pockets of moisture and shade. Even under steel and stone, the web continues. It is easy to forget the ground in a city. You look up at windows, cables, scaffolding, sky. But the ground does not forget you. It carries the weight of your steps, remembers every foundation laid. Long before the streets, before the bricks and wires, this was once forest, or marsh, or grassland. Beneath every city is a fossil of what once lived there, roots turned to memory, topsoil pressed into silence. And yet, even now, that memory breathes. The same processes unfold, though quieter. Decomposition, mineral exchange, microbial chatter. They continue in the dark, between pilings and water pipes, like an underground dream that refuses to be erased. Some trees, planted along sidewalks, send roots below the surface in search of breath and space. They twist around pipes, push against asphalt, reminding the city that nature is patient, not passive. You think of mushrooms blooming in unexpected places, in subway cracks, on forgotten rooftops, tiny caps rising from decay and humidity. They are signals, not errors. Echoes of the soil's resilience. Cities often cover the ground, but they cannot silence it. Stormwater flows down drains, but always seeks to return to earth. Crumbs, leaves, and dust settle in corners, becoming food for unseen organisms that go about their quiet work. Sometimes, entire underground ecosystems bloom in subway walls, forgotten basements, under manhole covers. Slime molds, silverfish, mold spores, earwigs, a city beneath the city, thriving on the margins of light. Beyond that, fungal threads still reach out, still form networks. They navigate urban obstacles like blind explorers, linking tree roots, breaking down carbon, holding soil together. This unseen life plays a role in how cities survive. Healthy soil beneath helps manage floods, absorb heat, even break down pollution. It is not just beneath us. It supports us. You begin to sense that the city is not a break from nature, but a layer within it. A new surface resting atop an ancient foundation. One that breathes, shifts, and listens still. And in this moment, you wonder about the stories the earth beneath the city might tell. Of the rain that soaked it 100 years ago. Of the roots it once cradled. Of the weight it now carries. There is a rhythm here too. Not as open as a forest song, but slow, persistent. The kind of rhythm that waits. A heartbeat buried deep in the bones of the ground. And though you may not hear it, the worms do. The fungi do. They continue their work with quiet certainty, shaping the future from what the surface leaves behind. In this light, you begin to see the city differently. Not as a separation from soil, but as one more layer in the long story of land. Stone en route, brick on earth, steel on memory. And still, beneath all that, movement. Still, beneath all that, breath. The soil under your feet is not gone. It is only sleeping differently, dreaming through concrete. And those dreams are full of motion, full of life, too small to see, but never too small to matter. You lean back, feeling the weight of the building beneath you, and deeper still, the earth. You wonder if even this buried soil can carry life. What else might rise from shadow and silence? You sit quietly by the window. The sky darkens. Clouds gather not with haste, but with purpose. The air thickens, not heavy, but full, like an exhale waiting to fall dot, and then the first drop, soft, round, a sound almost too small to name. It lands on a leaf, a rooftop, a forgotten brick. It does not rush. It listens. More drops follow, slow at first, spaced like notes in a quiet melody. Each one carries with it the story of the sky, moisture drawn from oceans, rivers, breath. Then a scent rises, familiar, ancient, almost sacred. It curls through the air like a sigh, from the ground itself. Petrichor, the perfume of first rain touching dry soil. This scent is more than memory. It is the release of geosmin, a compound made by actinomycetes, a type of soil-dwelling bacteria who flourish in dry times and wait patiently for this exact moment. When rain arrives, they respond. They send their molecules into the air, not with fanfare, but with grace, a signal that the ground is waking again. You inhale, and with it comes time. The scent of rain carries childhood and age, mountains and fields, dust stirred from forgotten roads. You lie quietly in the forest, where the light filters through leaves like lace. Above you, branches sway gently. Below you, a hidden network stirs. You cannot see it, but you can imagine it. Fine threads woven into the dark soil, stretching softly through the roots, through the damp, through the deep. This is mycelium, the branching, filamentous body of fungi. It doesn't rise with petals or bloom with color. Instead, it spreads, slow and secret, like thought beneath consciousness. Each thread, called a hypha, reaches outward, searching, sensing, listening. The forest is not quiet here. It only seems that way. Beneath the fallen needles and mossy stones, a quiet conversation continues. Trees speak to one another, not in sound, but through chemistry, and the mycelium is their messenger. You picture it now, a living map of threads glowing gently in the dark. It stretches for meters, sometimes kilometers, underfoot. Each intersection a moment of exchange, water, nutrients, signals. Each filament a soft line between beings, like veins across the forest's skin. Fungi do not move in the way animals do, but they navigate. They follow trails of carbon. They reach toward decaying wood. They send enzymes ahead of them, unlocking nutrients from stone and root. Their world is one of quiet transformation. A fallen branch begins to fade. Not disappear, but change. Fungal. Filaments slip into its cracks, digesting, releasing, renewing. Soon the branch becomes soil, becomes story, becomes breath. Fungi are not endings. They are continuations, disguised as decay. Some trees lean on these threads more than others. Saplings in shade receive sugars from elders through the fungal web. An old pine shares its strength with a struggling spruce. This generosity, unseen, threads the forest together and just as fungi share with trees, trees feed the fungi in return. Roots release sugars into the soil. A quiet thank you, a mutual gift. Together, they form the mycorrhizal network, a partnership older than mammals. You are surrounded by collaboration older than your language. You begin to feel it, not just in your thoughts, but in your breath, as if the forest itself is breathing through the ground, exhaling information, inhaling memory. You are lying in the mind of the woods. In some forests, the mycelium stretches through every tree. A single fungus may connect thousands of trunks. They call it the wood wide web, but that feels too technical. It is not machinery, it is a dream. Slow motion. Fungi are everywhere. Not just in soil, but in stone, water, even air. Spores float invisibly, searching for a home, a crack, a chance. When the right moment arrives, warmth, moisture, darkness, They bloom, not upward, but inward, downward, deeper. You think of dreams now, how they branch in the night, unexpected, uncontained. One memory touching another, unspoken but understood. The mycelium moves the same way, not in lines, but in longings. In this dream, time behaves differently. A mushroom that appears overnight was woven slowly underground for weeks. Its fruiting body is just a flicker, the brief breath of something ancient. The real fungus remains hidden, waiting, working. Some fungi are quiet helpers. Others are fierce competitors. Some warn plants of drought. Some sabotage their rivals. There is cooperation, but also cunning. The web is not gentle, only complex. Still, from this complexity, balance arises. Fungi help forests recover after fire. They link burned stumps to seedlings. They remember what was lost and make way for what is coming. In your body too. Fungi alive. On your skin, in your lungs, in your gut. Most do no harm. Many do good. You and the forest share more than breath. You share this fungal ancestry, this whispered intimacy. And in this moment of stillness, you feel the forest thinking. Not in words, not in thoughts like yours, but in slow exchanges of carbon and calcium, of warning and welcome. In roots and hyphae and the pulsing dark, you begin to imagine what it would feel like to be mycelium, to stretch slowly toward a buried seed, to listen for the footsteps of deer in the soil's vibrations, to hold the memory of rainfall in your damp network of filaments. What if connection is not always seen? What if it is built in secret, across time, through trust and touch? The forest does not rush. It does not speak loudly, but it remains aware and aware of you. A mushroom presses up through moss, its cap cool and damp in the early light. You see it now, but it was dreaming long before. Each one is a signal from below, a note in a longer song you are just beginning to hear. The forest around you is quiet, but not alone. Everything here is connected, through thread, through thought, through time. You feel less like a visitor now, and more like someone being invited into the mind of the land. And you wonder, if fungi dream in darkness, then what other silent travelers ride the currents between worlds? What grains move with the wind, with purpose not yet known? What soft drifters carry the potential to bloom, far from where they began? Dust drifts across the sky like a memory no longer attached to its source. You cannot see it clearly, yet it moves around you, through you, a soft swirl on the breeze, light as a sigh, ancient as bone. In this floating silence, something begins to unfold. You imagine one grain of dust, the smallest you can conceive, lighter than ash, rounder than a thought. Lifted by heat from a sun-baked dune, it rises from the Sahara, carried by the warm exhale of the desert. It drifts upward, higher than birds, past clouds, until it becomes part of an invisible river in the sky. This river of air crosses oceans. It carries more than just dryness. It carries life. Grain by grain, the dust moves west, across continents, through sky currents shaped by temperature and tide. It floats above the Atlantic, above storm systems and silver clouds. And beneath it, the rainforest waits. You might not expect this, that the Amazon, green and dripping, is fed by African dust. Minerals, rich in phosphorus and iron, fall with the rain like secret nourishment. What is worn down in one place becomes rebirth in another. Each year, billions of tons of dust rise into the air, not just from deserts, but from dry lakes, volcanic ash, plowed fields. They carry more than minerals. They carry microbes, bacteria, fungi, even viruses, airborne passengers from one land to the next. Some arrive and vanish. Others take root. A few even-shaped clouds serving as the speck around which a droplet can form. Without dust, some rains would never fall. Without rain, the soil would forget how to grow. And so, dust becomes a messenger of balance, a bridge between places, reminding you that what seems lifeless is never without purpose. Even something as small as a speck may carry the instructions for a forest dot in your home. You wipe it away. Dust on shelves, on windowsills, an annoyance, an afterthought. But even that dust tells a story. Skin cells, fabric threads, pollen. Stardust. Yes, even stardust. Tiny particles from meteorites float down every day. Cosmic dust, born in distant explosions, mixing now with your breath, your books, your bed. What falls to Earth never truly leaves again. It circles, settling, rising, drifting once more. Dust is the planet's quiet memory, broken into pieces, small enough to fly. A record of erosion, explosion, migration, soft and eternal. Your own breath carries droplets, too small to see. Your footsteps stir the air. Your body, like the land, sheds particles constantly. You are part of the dust, just as it is part of you dot in deep ice. Scientists read layers of ancient dust. Each stratum holds clues to climate, to fire, to wind. Like tree rings, these frozen sediments tell time not in hours, but in seasons of ash, pollen, and silence. Some dusts are born in violence. Volcanic eruptions, wildfires, meteor strikes. They rise with heat, spread with wind, and settle quietly, sometimes continents away. What begins with thunder often ends in stillness. What falls carries echoes of what once roared. Yet most dust travels slowly. Not all of it makes it far. Some settles back down within miles. But even those few inches matter, because all things that rise eventually return to rest. Dust builds soil. Dust softens rock. Over eons, it thickens valleys, blankets ocean floors, forms cliffs. Even coral reefs feed from what dust brings to the sea. It is not just what moves, but what is delivered that shapes the world. You imagine now the long sleep of a single grain. Once it lands, it may lie undisturbed for centuries, folded into sediment, pressed by time, until it becomes part of something larger. A mountain, a fossil, a star dot. It's a quiet process, never rushed. The grain never wonders where it's going. It simply moves with wind, waits in silence, lets the world decide where it belongs. Tonight, you two drift, gently, slowly carried by unseen currents of breath and thought. You don't need to know where you're going, just that you're moving with something older than your destination. And just as dust settles on leaves and skin, you feel the day's thoughts settle softly on your body. Each one light is a particle, waiting to be washed by sleep or carried forward into something new. And as you rest in this stillness, you wonder what other small travelers wander through the air, carrying messages not just between lands, but between lives. You walk into a forest and the air feels different, cooler, slower, more deliberate. It brushes your face with a softness not found in open fields or cities. Here, in the hush beneath the canopy, the world seems to exhale around. You rest here, breathing slowly. You imagine the air not as empty, but as full of life, of motion, of memory. A space not just between things, but a presence in itself. A carrier of warmth, story, and breath. And so, with every inhale, you join the world again. With every exhale, you give something back. The air holds your sighs, your laughter, your sleep, and carries them softly into the night. And just as the soil lives with breath and rhythm, the air listens to the whispers of what lies below. How does the ground beneath cities and stone still speak, even when covered by concrete and silence? You hold soil in your hand. It crumbles softly between your fingers. But what you hold is not just earth. It is memory. Each grain has a story, shaped by mountains, wind, water, and time. The soil remembers more than you can see. Beneath the trees, in the folds of the hills, the ground gathers history. It gathers it slowly, without urgency, one leaf at a time, one raindrop at a time. There is no rush in the language of soil. It is a patient collector of moments. What begins as stone does not stay stone forever. Mountains rise, then fall. Ice scours their faces. The sun heats them. The cold cracks them. Bit by bit, they break into pieces, smaller and smaller, until stone becomes dust. Rain carries those pieces downhill. Rivers drag them further still. Tiny fragments settle in valleys and floodplains, mixing with root and rot. And slowly, quietly, soil is born. A layer of life made from what once seemed lifeless. You imagine lying across a meadow, your back to the warm ground. The soil beneath you is not new. It is ancient. It has known dinosaurs, glaciers, volcanic ash. It has known the feet of ancestors, bare and hopeful. Some soils are dark with carbon, the remains of forests fallen long ago. Some are red with iron, oxidized by air and time. Others are pale, sandy, dry, echoes of deserts, of heat, of retreating seas. Each color is a clue, each texture a memory. Roots wind through this living archive, seeking water, anchoring life. They split rocks, they share sugars with fungi. They trace old paths and make new ones. The roots remember too, in their own quiet way. Here, where life meets stone, you find something extraordinary. Transformation. A dead leaf falls. A bug dies. A fire burns. And still, the soil receives it all, not as loss, but as offering. Everything is composted into something else. The top layer, the skin of the planet, is thin, sometimes just a few inches deep. But in that thin skin, entire ecosystems grow and die and grow again. Without it, there would be no trees, no grasses, no crops, no breath. Soil is the interface between life and the lifeless. And yet, for something so essential, it is easy to overlook. We build over it, dig into it, take from it, forget it. But the soil endures even as it changes. It holds the past gently, like pages in a book too sacred to close. You imagine time moving not as a straight line, but as sediment. Layer upon layer of life and death and dust. A wildfire becomes charcoal. A flood leaves silt. Even the footsteps of animals pressed into the mud may become fossil memories. There is a science to this memory. Paleosols, ancient soils buried deep below. Geologists read them like diaries. The shape of roots long gone. The pattern of pores once filled with rain. Clues about the climate, the forests, the species that once breathed here. You are walking not just on Earth, but on time itself. Each step presses lightly into an unwritten chapter. The soil gives way, but only slightly, only briefly. Then it returns to stillness. Holding your footprint like a breath, it will soon release. Even now, in this moment of rest, the soil is shifting, reacting. Worms move through it. Microbes stir. Tiny particles slide past one another, nudged by gravity and moisture. It is not a static stage, but a living, moving memory. Some soils are sacred. Terra preta in the Amazon, made rich by humans long ago. Charcoal, bones, broken pots, all folded into the earth. Still fertile after centuries, they tell a forgotten wisdom. We shaped the soil, and it shaped us in return. Soil also carries scars. Where forests were stripped, topsoil washed away. Where chemicals poured in, microbes vanished. The memory becomes fragile, fragmented, harder to read. But even damaged, Soil tries to remember. Lichens grow. Roots return. The earth begins slowly to forgive. Restoration is never fast, but it is possible, because the ground is more patient than we are. You let your fingers press into the soil once more. You feel warmth from the sun, coolness from the shade, the gentle grain of sand and silt. It feels like touching something that has been waiting for you, not to speak, but to be known. And in the hush of evening, when shadows stretch across the land, you imagine the stories held just beneath the surface. A seed from a tree long gone, the ash of an old fire, a whisper of rain that fell before you were born. The earth remembers what we forget. And when you lie still enough, you begin to remember too, not with your mind, but with your body, with your breath, your bones, your weight resting on the cradle of time. You close your eyes and feel the slow turning of the planet beneath you, a quiet wheel of stone and soil and sky. What will the land remember of you? What part of your story will remain in the ground? And just as this question begins to settle, you sense something deeper still, a living pulse within the soil that speaks not in memory, but in murmurings too small for the eye to see. Beneath your feet, beyond the reach of light, a world unfolds. It is not loud. It does not shimmer. It hums softly, steadily, in whispers too small for your ears. This is the world of the microbes. They are everywhere. In every pinch of soil, in every breath of air. They live on rocks, in rivers, inside roots, and within you. Invisible, yes, but not silent. They speak in the language of molecules, of enzymes, of touch. You imagine shrinking again, not to the size of a seed, but to the scale of a cell. Now the soil towers around you like a vast and crowded city. There are no roads, no lights, only a labyrinth of tunnels and pulses. And in this microscopic metropolis, life is never still. There is a rhythm here. Microbes move through moisture like fish through water. They swarm around roots, drawn to the sugar plants, exhale. Others cluster near decomposing leaves, feeding on fragments of the past. Bacteria greet one another with chemical handshakes. They form colonies, shape membranes, share genes. They build alliances with fungi, with plants, even with animals. And though they have no eyes or thoughts, their choices ripple outward, changing everything. Some bacteria fix nitrogen, pulling it from the sky and stitching it into the soil. Without them, plants could not grow. Others break down toxins, turning poisons into nutrients. And still others ferment, decay, dissolve, making room for something new. This work is not glamorous, not visible, but it is essential. Because without decay, there is no growth. Without microbes, soil would be silent. Fungi thread their way through this microbial sea, stretching filaments called hyphae. They form vast underground networks, the mycelium. These threads connect trees, share water, carry messages. And like neurons in the brain, they remember. Some fungi help roots absorb minerals. Others digest wood, returning it to the soil as carbon. A few are ancient recyclers, thriving where fire once burned or frost once fell. And all of them, together, hold the structure of the soil in their hands. You don't think of the ground as intelligent. But here, in this molecular quiet, something like memory lives. Not thought, perhaps, but pattern, repetition, reaction, repair. A knowing that lives in chemistry, passed from cell to cell. And this world, this buzzing, breathing layer beneath. Your feet is not separate from you. Your body is home to trillions of microbes, especially in your gut. They help digest food, calm inflammation, balance your mood. They talk to your brain through signals we are only just beginning to understand. You are not a single being, but a shared space. An ecosystem wrapped in skin. The microbes in your body reflect the microbes in the soil. You are shaped by the ground you walk on. When you eat, you feed more than yourself. When you breathe in spores, when your hands touch the earth, the connection deepens. You are always in conversation with the invisible, always exchanging messages with the world inside and below. And still, we barely know them. Most microbes have never been named, never been studied. They live in darkness, under pressure, in acid, in ice. They persist, adapt, evolve, quietly, endlessly. Some may hold answers to problems we haven't yet imagined. Others are ancient, unchanged for billions of years. They witness the birth of oxygen, the rise of plants, the evolution of limbs. They carry the story of life in every strand of their DNA. So tonight, as you lie still, imagine them moving. Microscopic sculptors, architects, translators of decay into fertility. They work without pause, without recognition, without rest. And yet, because of them, you can rest. Their murmurings do not disturb the night. They are the night. Their breath, their heat, their energy. It rises, invisibly, around you. The ground is never cold when life hums within it. And just when you think you've followed this story to its deepest layer, you feel something tug at your thoughts, a thread, a question. What lies beyond the reach of the roots in the dim space? Between them? What hidden network connects tree to tree, thought to thought, forest to forest? You lie down, eyes closed, breath slow, but the world beneath you is wide awake. Beneath soil and stone, under roots and rain, a quiet intelligence stirs, not of cities and machines, but of mycelium threads, whispering roots, sculpting insects, and breath shared between trees and oceans. You may not feel it on the surface, but every grain of dirt holds memory. Every gust of air holds history. This is not just a story about nature. This is a lullaby sung by the earth itself, a journey beneath your feet, where ants build bridges from their bodies. Fungi form forest internets, and even fallen trees still breathe. Here, life moves slowly, invisibly, yet everything you are is shaped by a dot in this gentle voyage. You'll float through ancient soils, drift with spores and dust, and listen to the breath of forests, volcanoes, and oceans. Each chapter is a soft step deeper into the living body of the planet. So close your eyes. Let your mind settle like silt at the bottom of a river. And listen as the hidden architects of the earth begin to speak. You lie down, and the world grows. Quiet, but beneath your resting body, the silence is an illusion. There is movement, slow, soft, steady. You may not hear it, but the earth is never still. Beneath the surface, a pulse of life beats. The soil under your skin is not dead dirt. It is alive. It is alive. A single spoonful holds more organisms than there are stars in the sky. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, tiny beetles and worms, each one playing a part in the great underground symphony. You feel the weight of the ground supporting you, and it hums like a distant memory. Every grain of soil is a miniature world shaped by wind, time, and touch. It holds the remains of fallen leaves, broken shells, the dust of mountains, the shadows of ancient roots. The soil is not just the past, it is the breath of becoming. You imagine yourself shrinking, gently drifting downward like a feather, down through the grass and fallen leaves, down past the roots, each one branching like veins beneath your skin. You slip between particles of clay and sand into the warm, moist heart of the earth. Here, everything is close. Microbes nudge against one another, whispering in molecules. They trade nutrients, send signals, dissolve what once was to make space for what will be. Their world is one of constant transformation, not loud or violent, but patient, methodical. Ancient. Fungi stretch like threads in the dark. They connect root to root, tree to tree, forming a web of understanding. They move information and nourishment through the forest, unseen and unthanked. Some call it the wood wide web, but it feels more like a dream spun from silence. A worm turns. In the soil beside you, mouth full of earth. Its movements are small, but they shift everything. Tunnels are made, air flows in, water follows. The worm is not only moving through the earth, it is remaking it. You begin to sense how soil breathes. It draws in oxygen and exhales carbon dioxide. Its breath rises through roots, through leaves, into the air you just exhaled. And still, we walk across it without a thought. This ground that carries the entire story of life. Beneath old forests, ancient soils hold secrets. Some have taken thousands of years to form, built slowly by lichen, moss, fallen needles, and time. Others are young, shaped by floods or fire, still learning how to hold life. But all soil is alive, and all life, in some way, returns to soil. The ants here are builders. The termites, architects. They sculpt caverns and chambers, move seeds, carry fungus spores. Each tiny body leaves a trace, and in their small way, they shape the world. You may think of soil as silent, but it speaks in cycles. Nitrogen moves. Through it, pass from microbe to plant to root. Carbon is stored deep below, locked away or released depending on heat and rain. Everything here is part of an exchange, a slow, sacred economy of breath. You wonder, how does the soil know what to keep and what to let go? A decaying leaf becomes food. A root that dies makes way for another to grow. And still, nothing is wasted. Nothing is forgotten in the stillness of sleep. Your body feels the rhythm of this living earth. Your skin rests on a layer of life that cradles every step, every fallen tree, every blooming field. And even now, as you begin to drift, that life continues, tirelessly, quietly, beautifully. You are not separate from it. The cells in your body once came from this soil. The food you eat, the air you breathe, the bones in your body, all born from Earth's breath. And one day, your body will return to it, completing a circle older than memory. You begin to feel the deep comfort of that knowing, that you are part of something vast, something soft and certain. Beneath you, the earth does not sleep, but it does cradle. And in that cradle, you find stillness above ground. We speak of life as light, movement, sound. But here, underground, life is dim and damp and wordless. It hums in the wet darkness, in the compost of the forgotten, in the breath of decomposers. It hums you to sleep, and as you drift further into rest, you wonder, if the soil is so alive, then what other unseen currents shape our world? What does the air carry that the earth does not? What invisible forces are swirling even now, just above your breath? You take a breath. It feels simple, automatic. But in that quiet inhale, you draw in the story of the sky. Air slips through your nose, down into your lungs, soft, unseen, and ancient. You feel it fill you, as if the sky itself is curled inside your chest. This breath you hold, it is not yours alone. It has traveled long distances, wandered over forests, mountains, and oceans. It may have once brushed the wings of a bird in flight, or passed through the spiracles of an ant deep beneath a leaf. The air is not still. It never has been. Even in the calmest night, it stirs gently, circling, folding, learning. Warm air rises from sunlit rocks. Cold air slips in to take its place. Wind plays with tree branches, then vanishes into stillness again. You cannot see it, but you know it's there. Felt on your skin, heard in leaves, sensed in your lungs. Air is made of gases, mostly nitrogen, some oxygen, and traces of everything else. Carbon dioxide, water vapor, tiny bits of pollen and salt. Even the breath of other people, long gone, may linger in the wind. You are not just breathing oxygen. You are breathing history. A molecule you inhale now may once have passed through a dinosaur's lungs. It may have floated above the Sahara or spun in a cyclone above the sea. The air remembers, even when we do not. Every breath is acquired. Inheritance. Air carries the size of trees, the exhale of oceans, the combustion of stars. It is touched by everything it passes, fire and flower, mountain and mine. It moves between bodies, between species, between centuries. You are part of this great exchange. The oxygen you draw in nourishes every cell in your body. And with every exhale, you send carbon dioxide back into the world. Plants will take it in, break it down, make food from your breath. You think of the sky above, that vast blue dome we call atmosphere. But it is not solid, not contained. It is layered, laced, living. The troposphere, where weather is born. The stratosphere, where ozone dances with light. Above them, thinner still, air fades into the stars. Closer to you, near the ground, air clings to Earth's surface like a second skin. It slips into valleys, rushes through canyons, nestles in forest hollows. Here, it touches soil and root, leaf and fur. Here, the air is rich with scent and memory. You imagine shrinking into a single breath, carried gently on the wind. You float through a meadow, brushed by the perfume of wildflowers and moss. You pass through a city street, thick with sound and dust. Then up again, high over quiet oceans, where the air grows thin and pale. Tiny particles travel with you. Aerosols, smoke, spores, seeds. Some ride the wind for days, even weeks, crossing continents. Dust from the Sahara feeds the Amazon. Volcanic ash circles the globe, cooling skies thousands of miles away. Air connects everything. It's the medium of sound, the messenger of scent, the stage for birds and clouds. It carries warmth, movement, whispers. Without it, there is no life, no fire, no voice. You think of how your breath slows as you sleep. Your body adjusts without asking, a rhythm older than thought. This rhythm, inhale, exhale, has carried you from your first cry to this quiet moment. And always, the air has been there, waiting. Even the stillest air is in motion. Warmth rises from the skin of the earth. Trees release water into the sky in slow, invisible sighs. Clouds form, drift, break apart, and rain returns to the ground. You realize the sky is not above you. It surrounds you. You live inside it like a fish in water. Every space you inhabit, room, forest, mountaintop, is a chamber of air. You move through it, shape it, depend on it. Sometimes air grows heavy, with pollution, with ash, with grief. We notice it then, the cough, the sting, the haze. But even when clean and clear, it holds responsibility. Because every breath we take changes the balance. When forests are cleared, the air warms. When oceans absorb too much carbon, they acidify. Our industries breathe out gases faster than the planet can absorb. And the air, once patient, begins to strain under the weight. But air also holds possibility. With each leaf that opens, each tree that grows, the balance tips again. Wind turbines hum with quiet purpose. Reefs breathe back with bubbles of oxygen.